show.
Welcome to episode 65 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. If you're a new listener and you really enjoy the show, it would be a big time help if you give us a 5-star rating and review on both Apple and Spotify. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you enjoy the content, we would appreciate it so much if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. All right, everybody. We are 3 games into the Stanley Cup Final between the Colorado Avalanche and Tampa Bay Lightning. The Avs lead the series 2-1. It looked like it could have been a sweep, honestly, after those first 2 games, but the Lightning, the back-to-back champs, are right back in this thing. We are going to give you our thoughts and opinions on the Stanley Cup Final. We're going to talk some Toronto Maple Leafs, of course. This is a Leafs podcast, after all. We got to talk about the Leafs. So we're going to get into some juicy topics. I promise you're not going to want to miss this one. But before we get into all that, it is time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Anthony Bruno, as usual. Thank you so much for the solid introduction. Sitting here enjoying the Stanley Cup Final, as many hockey fans are. Episode 65. Shout out goes to, funny enough, I wouldn't have guessed this one, the only Maple Leaf in the history of the organization to wear number 65, Ilya Mikheyev, who signed with the Leafs as a Russian free agent. So let's get right to the conversation, Bruno. Will Ilya Mikheyev be back with the Toronto Maple Leafs next season?
God, I hope he's back.
Yeah.
That speed kills, man. Just watching this Avalanche team, how fast it is, and the Leafs losing a guy like Ilya Mikheyev with that speed. Honestly, he's probably one of the 5 fastest guys in the NHL.
In a straight line, yeah.
Yeah, and I know his finishing ability isn't the best. We've seen him miss a ton of breakaways. This year, his finishing ability took a big step up from what we saw in the past. But, man, that would be a tough loss. I hope he's back.
Yeah, there was that crazy stat where I don't know if it was for the entire season or for a certain span where his expected goals was like in the plus while on the penalty kill. Like the Leafs were creating more chances when he was on while he was killing penalties, just again because of that speed. What would you think is a fair deal for him? Like what deal would you be like, sign it now?
Man, that's a really good question, because who knows what he's going to command on the open market. I would assume it's got to be between like 3 and 4 million.
Yeah, I was thinking like 3 years, 10 million, like something like that.
Yeah, that's probably right around what he's probably going to get. Like, do you think a team offers him something over 4 million, like potentially? But no, I don't think
he scores enough. I don't think he scores enough for that. Yeah. I mean,
I think somewhere between 3 and 4 million he's going to get. Yeah, and hopefully he's back, and hopefully it's not just like a 1-year deal. I don't think he would sign a 1-year deal, but I hope that Mikheyev and the organization have mended fences after, the whole thing that we saw in the All or Nothing documentary, how he wanted out of here. Then he has this big bounce back season, and now he's a hot commodity. I hope it all works out, man.
Yeah. There was some buzz that they kind of kissed and made up, and he may be interested in re-signing, but we'll see. I mean, I won't be surprised either way. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, we hope Mikheyev is back. All right, Lepore, let's jump right into the Stanley Cup Final.
Let's do it.
Lightning Avalanche. So just to go over our predictions before the Cup Final, Lepore had the Avalanche winning in Game 7 overtime. Yes. I love that prediction. So
far
awesome.
Down.
So Lepore's on the Avalanche in 7. I took the Lightning in 6. I'm not going to lie, man. I was pretty scared after those first 2 games. I go, This is not looking good at all. It just kind of felt different. Like, it didn't feel like, now, you know what? They did go down 2-0 to the Rangers, and that felt bad as well. And I was on the Lightning in that series. I had them winning in 6 against the Rangers, but this one just felt a little bit different. But then, you take a step back, you realize, okay, the Leafs beat the Lightning 5-0 in Game 1 in the first round. The Leafs came out of the gate looking absolutely incredible.
Bruno,
Game 1. Lepore, people were texting me being like, we're winning the cup. This our year. I've never seen them play like this. And then, of course, Tampa comes back to win the series in 7. So you take a step back and you think, okay, you can't count this team out. As bad as it looked in game 2, going down 7-0, you can't count out the back-to-back champs. So after watching these first 3 games, Lepore, how do you feel about your prediction heading into game 4?
It's funny, like which prediction, the Avalanche winning or it going all the way to 7?
Both.
I will say I'm still confident in the Avalanche. We'd all be lying if we sat here and said that we thought there was a chance this series could be a sweep. So the fact that Tampa won last night is in no way surprising. I got to say though, man, I think Colorado's got it. I think from what I've seen from the first 3 games, I may switch my prediction to 5 or 6. I really feel that way. Last night's game, I mean, even too, Colorado had that goal called back because the offside, and then they scored, I'll call it a real goal. But I don't know. It still feels like Colorado, and it's theirs to lose. And then with Kucherov getting hurt late in the 3rd, who knows what's going on there. And I know part of your argument for Tampa was it looked like Braden Point was coming back. And now, I mean, we're still waiting. So I don't know. Kadri skating too. Positive signs there. Again, we'll see if he actually plays. But I feel very confident in my pick saying the Avalanche were going to win the Stanley Cup. But I got to say, from these first few games, I don't see it going 7. How do you feel about your pick of the Lightning in 6?
I don't feel great about Lightning in 6. I'm not going to lie. Listen, I'm not someone who's just going to plant my flag. And even if I'm presented with new information, I'm not going to change my mind. I'm not one of those people. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to change my pick and say that Colorado for sure is going to win the Stanley Cup. What I will say is that I don't feel great about the Lightning winning the Cup. Those first 2 games, man, it was rough. Like Colorado just looked like the superior team. And I knew Tampa was going to bounce back. And it was nice to see them make a statement in game 3, winning 6-2 on home ice. But that Avalanche team, they are playing with so much confidence right now. They're flying up and down the ice. But let's break a few things down. So
sure.
If you're a Lightning fan, or if you've bet on the Lightning and you want to be optimistic, the one thing I think you can be optimistic about is that Colorado now might have a goaltending issue. Kemper did not look good in game 3. No. He got pulled. This whole playoffs, Kemper has not been good the entire playoffs. That's what's so crazy about this run by the Avalanche. They are now, they're 14-3 in the playoffs. And they've been doing this with, honestly, subpar goaltending. Like, Kemper has not been good. Francouz has actually been better than Kemper, but he also hasn't even been that great.
Yeah, the advanced stats guys are smiling at the goalies, not at Colorado doing very well, regardless of
it's
good
just
goaltending.
Wild to see how dominant they've been with average to below average goaltending in these playoffs. So maybe you can point to that and say, who are the Avalanche going to turn to in game 4? Because they weren't 100% confident going with Kemper. Remember, Avalanche head coach Jared Bednar did not even name his starting goalie until the day of game 1.
But there was the injury
before puck drop.
Was that more because of the injury issue or because of performance? Or both? I mean,
I think it's both, honestly. Mm-hmm. I just felt it to me, it was very fishy that they didn't just come out and say Kemper's our guy, he's starting game 1. Like, I don't understand why they kept that so close to the vest. So that indicates to me that, I don't know, there's a little bit of maybe indecision going on behind the scenes. Like, is Kemper really our best goalie right now? And sure, if you want to look at their careers, I mean, they both have honestly pretty similar numbers throughout their careers. But it was very interesting to me that they didn't just plant the flag on Darcy Kemper and say he's our guy. So I don't know, maybe you can point to that if you're a Tampa Bay Lightning fan or if you have money on the Lightning. But when you look at the Lightning right now, we don't know what's happening with Nikita Kucherov. He got cross-checked by Devin Taves late in game 3. He took a one-timer on the power play and then just seemed to be in a lot of pain, skates off the ice. He's limping to the locker room. Braden Point missed game 3. We don't know if he's going to be back in this series. So do you actually think that Tampa can win a 3rd cup without Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov? Like, that would be insane. I don't think there's any way, honestly, that they can win the cup without those two. So if those two aren't healthy, they're done. So I'm not feeling great, Lepore. My Avalanche my Lightning in 6 pick is not looking good, but honestly, I won't be surprised by anything this Tampa Bay Lightning team does because they just amaze me over and over again.
Yeah, it's funny how hockey works though, man, because we're sitting here and I think, well, I can't say I think, I know game 1 was what we thought we were going to get. Tampa comes back, overtime game, fantastic, bring it on, inject it into my veins. Give me 7 games of that. Then Colorado wins by a touchdown. And then, like you said, a lot of people, not that, it's over, but you're getting kind of nervous if you have a bet on the Lightning. And then they put up an amazing performance last night. And even with all these things we're sitting here saying, Colorado looks really good. Tampa has all these injuries, a lot of question marks, but home ice, man. If they win game 4, are we doing a complete 180? Or if Tampa wins game 4, I'll just ask you straight out. If Tampa wins game 4, would you switch your bet to Tampa? Or would you seriously consider switching your bet to Tampa, regardless of the series being tied?
I don't think, even if it's tied 2-2, that you can be too confident in Tampa winning the series because Colorado still has home ice. And honestly, from what I've seen in Ball Arena, those first 2 games and that crowd has been absolutely electric.
Yeah.
That's one of the best hockey crowds I've seen in recent memory, honestly.
Yeah. That Blink 182 thing's becoming.
Oh my God. It's unreal. And honestly, I think the only thing that would have rivaled that is if the Bell Center had a full crowd for the Stanley Cup Final last year, because I can't even remember how many fans were allowed in the building.
Not many.
Last
year,
but
that or something.
That would have been electric in Montreal. And who knows? I mean, Toronto would probably be the same thing if the Leafs ever got to a cup final. But that atmosphere at Ball Arena was outrageous. So I'd still. And again, I think honestly, there's a pretty decent chance that we are going back to Denver tied 2-2 in this series.
Yeah.
But with the Avalanche having home ice, the injury situation now with Kucherov and Point, because on Colorado's side, Kadri's still out. I personally don't think he's going to be back in this series. Cogliano's back, but Burakovsky missed game 3. So both teams are dealing with injuries. But if you had to pick which injuries I'd rather have, it's Colorado's injuries all day long. Give me an injured Kadri and Burakovsky over friggin' Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point, who have arguably been the 2 best players in the playoffs for the last 3 years.
No real word on Burakovsky, eh? Like how bad it is, or
yeah, with Burakovsky, it's and you know what? At this time of year, Lepore, we don't know anything about these injuries. These teams aren't telling us anything. It's
what a
ridiculous.
Stupid fluke thing with his hand. We tried to catch it, or he's tried to block that pass. Unbelievable. So
I just wish there was more transparency, kind of like the NFL.
Yeah,
like for gambling purposes, how you know exactly what the injury is, how long they're going to be out. Like in the NHL, you don't know anything, honestly. So who knows? And it's going to be the same thing with Kucherov. Probably they're going to keep everything close to the vest. I feel like based on just watching the injury happen, that cross check and how he looked afterwards, it kind of looks like he might be able to gut it out in game 4. But who the hell knows? If they're without Point and Kucherov, that team is absolutely screwed. But Lepore, even if it's tied 2-2, man, I'm still not feeling great. I'm feeling a lot better about Lightning in 6 because I saw them reel off 4 straight against the Rangers, but I'm not feeling super good about it, man.
Yeah, I always kind of wondered why teams do that. And comment down below if you have an answer with regard to the injuries. Like, because it's typically the star players. Like, they don't want to say something. Okay, if Kucherov's out for the series, they're not going to announce it. But at the end of the day, it's like, it is what it is. The team's going to face Kucherov or they're not going to face Kucherov. And it's like, if it's a question mark, well, they're preparing for Kucherov. So the fact that they're prepared for Kucherov, they're in a fine spot if Kucherov doesn't play, right? So I've always been kind of confused as to why it's this big secret. But while you were saying it, you mentioned the NFL, and this may be a little out there. Could the reasoning in the NFL be because of fantasy?
Oh yeah, I think it's all because of fantasy and
the
gambling.
Importance of fantasy. Yeah,
100%. That's why they disclose all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know why these other leagues aren't there yet. Like the NHL, honestly, I think it's kind of a joke that
it's
don't
so
hear
stupid.
Anything in the playoffs. Like,
it's so stupid.
Even with Braden Point, like, tell us what he has. No, it's just lower body injury, upper body injury. It could be anything.
If it's a knee or a hip, who fucking cares?
And like, sure, we can all kind of go through the tape and be like, oh, that looks like a knee injury, or that looks like a ankle injury, or that looks like a shoulder injury. But I mean, come on. At some point, the NHL just has to come out and tell us what the hell is wrong with these guys. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little bit too dramatic about it, but I just think it's getting ridiculous now. Like, just disclose these injuries, tell us what's going on. Like, do these teams think that they're getting an edge? Like, oh, we're not going to disclose exactly where Braden Point is injured on his lower body. Like, give me a break.
I know.
Anyway, I think the Lightning are still in trouble. Like, just to go over some stats to get nerdy for a second here, Lepore.
No, we never do that.
Looking at the advanced stats. So
regardless of what the comments say.
Oh, I can't wait. Through the first 3 games of the Cup Final, the Avalanche have controlled 62% of the shot attempts at 5-on-5.
Wow.
They have 64% of expected goals at 5-on-5. They have 66% of the scoring chances at 5-on-5 and 63% of the high danger scoring chances
versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. Even last night, weren't the shots were pretty even, weren't they?
The shots were the most even I think they've been through the first 3 games last night.
Yeah, it was one of those ones where everything was going in for one team.
Exactly. But when you look at those numbers over the first 3 games, it's hard to, like, you got to be objective about this stuff, right? Like, the Avalanche have just simply been the better team. I mean, whether you're looking at the stats, you're using the eye test, I don't think you could come out of these first 3 games and say Tampa's been the better team.
It's funny that we're saying this after a 6-2 loss. Like, imagine, and again, how it's always different. Here we are sitting here. Colorado wins the first 2 games, the second game by a touchdown, loses game 3, and they're fine. They're the better team. They're going to get it done. Imagine the Leafs were up 2-0 in the Stanley Cup Final and then lost game 3, 6-2.
Oh, people would be in panic mode.
Pure like full-blown fucking panic mode. It's so funny. Another weird thing, and you tell me, random topic. Is it not weird, or if it always feels weird to me, and I guess I'll say it's Tampa, it's like the playoff games, but to see fans in the crowd who are extremely tanned and in shorts, I'll never get used to that.
It's bizarre. Yeah, like, first of all, like, when there's good weather in Toronto, it's like June essentially, because even in May it's still like not great and you're not really wearing shorts. So we never see Leaf fans in shorts and a t-shirt and tan because the Leafs never make it past the first round of the playoffs. And then you go to these other teams, these Florida teams, these California teams, they're making it to the Cup Final every year, it seems, at least over the last 10 to 20 years. And they're tan, they're in shorts, tank tops, sometimes in the stands. It's bizarre, man, because you're not going to see that here in Toronto. Absolutely not.
Definitely not in Ottawa, that's for sure. It's fucking freezing all the time here.
It's time for a quick break for a word from MANSCAPED. Gentlemen, all men strive for gold in their life, right? Gold medals, gold watches, gold everything. However, there is a certain type of man who goes the extra mile. He walks with the confidence of an eagle and giggles in the face of danger. He's a big, hairless winning machine, and when he unzips his pants, he sees platinum? That's right. MANSCAPED would like to introduce to you their best and biggest ultimate hygiene bundle yet, the Platinum Package 4.0. MANSCAPED is the leader in below-the-waist grooming. Now trust them with the whole thing. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust MANSCAPED by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping using the promo code GFP20. Lepore, I mean, it doesn't get any better than the Platinum Package 4.0. MANSCAPED is killing the game.
I love it, man. Guys, MANSCAPED is not just a shaver for your balls. There's a deodorant, there's a body spray, there's a body wash, there's a shampoo and conditioner. The products go forever. So like Bruno said, go the extra mile. Take care of yourself. Spoil yourself at manscaped.com, GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping.
the best products. If you want to be the best version of yourself, you got to pick up the Platinum Package 4.0. Once again, get 20% off and free shipping with the code GFP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using the promo code GFP20. It's time you enjoyed the finer things in life and get yourself a Platinum Package for your Platinum Package.
Let's go. We got some news coming through during our pod, Bruno. There's some buzz going around that Jay Woodcroft has signed with the Edmonton Oilers for 3 years, 3-year extension for Woodcroft. And I mean, no one would say he doesn't deserve it after the turnaround they had.
Look at that, man. Yeah, that's not a surprise because when Jay Woodcroft came in, that Oilers team was not looking good.
No.
And honestly, it was scary. Like they were on the verge of potentially missing the playoffs for the 4th time in Connor McDavid's 7 seasons in the NHL, but he did a spectacular job turning that ship around. They bring in Evander Kane. The offense gets back on track. They make it to the conference final. So you know what? Congrats to Jay Woodcroft. He did a great job, and I think he fully deserves that.
Yeah, and it's nice to see, like, I mean, we said Torts in Philly, all these guys getting passed around, Cassidy, DeBoer. It's nice to see kind of like a new guy, like come in and do well because it makes you root for him. You know what I mean? Like we said before on this podcast, we're just sick of these guys getting passed around. Like, go be creative. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It's just, I don't have an opinion as to why I feel that way. Like, if I can say that a coach who has barely coached at the NHL level or has never coached at the NHL level will do a better job than some guy who's been around forever. I just think it's like so boring and shows lack of creativity amongst NHL teams.
Oh, 100%. It's always good to get some new blood in the coaching ranks because we see it in all sports. It's not just hockey. The same coaches just get recycled year after year.
Yeah, but why is that, man? Like I'm a big college football fan, and every year, like a team does well. You hear, okay, he's going to go interview with the Philadelphia Eagles, or he's going to interview with whatever NFL team. And then in the NFL, it's always the coordinators. Every time this defensive or offensive coordinator is doing a fantastic job, there's the buzz of him getting bumped up to be a head coach. Whereas I've always wondered, like in the NHL, why do you never really see so-and-so from whatever CHL team's done a fantastic job and he's getting a shot with the Red Wings? Or whatever guy who's been an NCAA coach and run an amazing program for 20 years is getting a shot with Chicago. Like, this doesn't work that way. It's weird, man. And I'd love for GMs to explain that one to me, or again, comment down below with why I think that reasoning is.
It's like what you said, man. I think it's just a lack of creativity. Some teams, they go out there and they're progressive and they're looking for some fresh blood, a fresh thinker, you know, and I kind of look at the NFL with a guy like, I mean, he was a coordinator, but like Sean McVay, right? How he's kind of like the face of like the new era of coaches, like the young genius coach who can also motivate players. Like in the NHL, it seems like these teams don't go out there and try to find that guy. And, you know, we're saying this, but the Leafs went out and hired Sheldon Keefe, who never coached in the NHL. He worked his way up through the ranks and then, you know, won a Calder Cup in the AHL with Kyle Dubas, and he gets promoted. But it would be so nice to see, you know, these teams go out there and not just rehire John Tortorella and Peter DeBoer and Daryl Sutter and go down the list. And I'm not saying that those guys are bad coaches, but you're telling me that there's only like 37 guys who can coach an NHL team, because that's what it seems like every year.
It would be an interesting thing to look up to see how many coaches have worked in the NHL, say over the last like 5 to 10 years. Or sorry, how do I put this? Like how many coaching positions have been filled, and then how many actual coaches have been used in those positions. That'd be really interesting to look at, because I mean, the number probably won't be that different. Like, or I should say, the number of actual coaches will not be very high compared to the number, especially compared to other sports. But it's what I've always kind of had in the back of my mind of this whole recycle coaching thing, and we're going in circles now. But would there be a bigger nightmare than Tortorella coaching the Leafs? Like that personality in Toronto, that's a reality show. Like Amazon would come running for that one, 5-year deal, or as long as Torts is in charge.
My God,
it'd be
that
hilarious.
would be a circus. I saw Brandon Dubinsky tweeted out. Did you see that tweet he sent out when Tortorella got hired by the Lightning? He's like, by the Flyers. He goes, pray for the Flyers players or whatever he said.
Yeah. Like, again, man, it's weird. Hockey's so weird with that stuff. I always look back at the Wilson hiring, Ron Wilson in Toronto, and I love Berkey. I mean, he's great. He's great for sound bites, and he's interesting. He's been around a long time. His book's very good. He's got the resume. But I think there were some of the moves he made during his tenure kind of represent the fact that he didn't really and truly understand Toronto and understand the Maple Leafs, where, like, number one, naming Dion Phaneuf captain. And it's not because of Dion's play. It's more because of, like, kind of the character and personality. Like, Dion Phaneuf should not be the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Brian, like, regardless of anything. Just a bad decision. And I know they're old pals, but when he hired Wilson, looking back now, like, he's a grumpy guy who is, like, super quick to fire back. Like, I can't be the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, sane people will go absolutely bananas coaching the Maple Leafs. You can't have a hothead. Like, that's why I make the joke about
the worst
Tortorella.
Personality you could have coaching the Leafs.
Oh my God. And that's where I make the point of, like, I don't think he really truly and understood the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we'll quite often say things on this podcast like, oh, that move for the Leafs is too loud, or there's too much pressure. And it's true. And Leafs fans know what it's like to be fans of this team and for us to deal with things as fans. And so can you imagine what it's like for the players and the coaching staff? It takes certain personalities, the right personalities, and it's not better or worse. It's just different. It's different.
You need guys with a level head who don't get too emotional.
Yeah.
Who just keep an even keel. Those are the guys you need in charge as the coach, the GM. And you can totally disagree with us if you think we're crazy saying this. And even the president, if you think about Shanahan, Dubas, and Keefe, they're all pretty level headed.
Yeah.
They're not emotional guys. They're not going out in front of the media during these press conferences and saying outlandish things.
Yeah. Even
Dreisaitl's board material.
Like Dreisaitl's whole, like, that thing he had this year with the comment with the whole, like, why he's so pissy thing. I mean, like, that went pretty far, but he lost his cool. And then we can debate all day long whether he was entitled to lose his cool, or, he can do whatever he wants and fire back at the journalist. But I guarantee it that he would have lost it had he been a Toronto Maple Leaf many times, based on what I saw there. And again, it's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just based on the type of character, right? So, like, I know myself. I mean, I can be a snapperhead. Like, I wouldn't be able to keep my cool as well as some of these current Leafs do. But no, different land, man. Different land.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, but it is frustrating seeing the same coaches get hired over and over again. But shout out to Jay Woodcroft, he deserves it. Did a great job with the Oilers, and we'll see if they can repeat their success next season. I will be watching very, very closely, Oilers fans, as I always do.
3-year deal for Jay Woodcroft. The briefcase of $1 million is put in front of you. Well, Jay Woodcroft, he's already smiling. Bruno's already smiling. Will Jay Woodcroft win a Stanley Cup with the Edmonton Oilers?
No. Absolutely
So quick.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Will they make the playoffs next year and the year after that? I mean, I think they will.
Comment down below, everybody.
I got to see what the Oilers do in the offseason. Let's see what they do in the offseason, because they obviously have two of the best players in the league, and there's a lot you can do with that, as I've talked about ad nauseum. They should be a much better team than they are, but we'll see. We'll see how they retool a little bit in the offseason and create a better environment for Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl to actually win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, the Oilers will be a big guessing game next year. Like, nothing would surprise me. I mean, if they're like over 100 points again, comfortable season, or they fall off the rails just based on their previous few seasons, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to follow the Oilers in 22-23.
Team to try.
They are.
Going back to the Cup Final for a second, Lepore, is Cale Makar just a slam dunk at this point to win the Conn Smythe? He's now minus 170 to win the Conn Smythe.
Wow. I think he is. I mean, of course, with that question, it means Colorado wins the Stanley Cup, but he's out there all the time. He's incredible defensively. He always has the puck, and he's putting up the numbers. Like he's top 5 in scoring in the playoffs as a defenseman. He's got the most points on his team as a defenseman. Like, I wouldn't have to see anything. I wouldn't have to see anything from a team. If you told me that the Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup and Morgan Riley had the most points on the team, I'd be like, well, you kind of have to give him the Conn Smythe. Like, I wouldn't need to watch any play or highlights or anything. It's like, no, that just is what it is. So I think we're there. I think if Colorado wins it, he's a slam dunk, unless this thing goes 4 more games and McKinnon gets like 15 points or something, maybe like an overtime winner, a hat trick or something like that. But as it stands right now, I can't see him not getting it. Thing is too, right? And really and truly dialing into the Avalanche these last couple rounds, everything goes through him. It reminds me kind of like when Carlson was with the Senators and they went on their run, where he's the breakout. He's the point on the power play.
Yeah, he does it all.
He's the quarterback. So even say, if McKinnon gets X amount of points, well, Makar is naturally going to get almost as many as him because he's just there and he's breaking it out, or he's feeding him on the power play, or he gets the second assist because he was involved. So at this point, I really think unless something historical happens, and I say that like in a good way, it'd be awesome if, say, McKinnon or whoever went off. But yeah, I think it says you.
Yeah, I think it's a slam dunk at this point. If the Avalanche win, I don't think there's any way McKinnon, Rantanen, go down the list, Landeskog, I don't think there's any way any of those guys can win the Conn Smythe. Because you said it, like, even if McKinnon goes on a crazy stretch where he gets like 12 points over the next 4 games and this thing goes 7, like Makar's most likely going to be in on like 10 of those 12 points that McKinnon gets. Yeah. So he's going to end up leading the team in scoring. He has 7 goals too. Like, he's 3rd in the playoffs in scoring right now. Connor McDavid, number 1, Draisaitl, number 2. It's hilarious how those two are going to probably end up finishing 1-2 unless this series does go the distance and these Colorado and Tampa guys can rack up some more points.
How many points behind is Makar?
Makar is 6 points behind Draisaitl and 7 points behind McDavid.
McDavid had like 33 or something.
33.
Yeah.
And
that's possible.
And Makar has 26 points in 17 games as a defenseman.
That's something we'd have to look back, like a defenseman leading the playoffs and scoring. Like, I got to think Bobby Orr would be the only guy. I mean, because even like Coffee with the Oilers, like, no, Gretzky, Gretzky existed. So interesting. Yeah,
it's wild, man. And there's a reason he's a massive favorite. Like I mentioned, looking at the book I'm looking at now, -170 favorite. Andrei Vasilevsky is second on that list at 5-1. And you would think if Tampa does come back and win the cup, especially if they're going to be without Braden Point and maybe without Nikita Kucherov, like Vasilevsky's going to have to put up like a 970 save percentage over the next 4 games. So it's one of those two guys.
Bet against him though, Bruno. Even last night's game, man, you look at it and you see, 6-2 win. Vasilevsky made 2 crazy saves.
He was unreal.
I think one when it was 0-0 and one when was it 1-0 Colorado at that point? I'll have to go back on that.
When he stretched out the pad, I believe it was on JT Compher. Right in front of the net. It was like this quick, just stretch out the pad reflex. Like Compher had an open net. He's made some unbelievable saves. Even in the game that Tampa got shelled, or even going back to the overtime game, like he just makes some outrageous saves.
Yeah. This series, like this playoffs, I think has done a lot for a lot of people. And maybe if we go back, it'd be similar to different ones. You look at guys like Nichushkin. You look at guys like even like Palat. Palat's a free agent, man. Like, he's gonna get paid. Someone's gonna give him a lot of money. That goal he scored last night, I absolutely loved. Was it Stamkos who fed him? I might be wrong there, but I can't
remember who it was that fed him.
Yeah, like he dropped it to him and then he fed him across and he put it short side high. And I loved it because, again, being the biggest hockey geek in the world,
it was Stamkos. By the way,
it was Stammer. Yeah, it was a total 80s Mike Keenan goal, because Keenan's whole thing was always 2 guys on the puck. And if you go back and watch the 87 Canada Cup highlights, the Gretzky to Lemieux goal, one's following the other. And then he drops it, goes wide. And it was just that exact. As soon as that play happened, I'm like, that's a Mike Keenan 80s goal all the way. I loved it. Again, being a total nerd for that stuff. But Palat's a sick player, man. Maybe he'll, play for a different team wearing blue.
Oh, Lepore. I like that. But no, you said it, man. Some dudes are going to get paid. Nichushkin,
Nick Paul,
Palat, Nick Paul. Like these guys have been so good, man.
God,
so good. It just goes to show, your top players obviously have to be great and have to go on a run in order for you to get this far in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But you need those depth guys to contribute. Yeah. You need it. And it doesn't have to be all your depth guys. If you can get one or two depth guys to just go on the run of a lifetime, that's all it really takes. And that can propel you all the way to this point. Lepore, let's talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs now.
Sure.
All right. They're in a situation, not necessarily this year, but over the next couple of years. Okay. Because let's go through their cap sheet real quick.
Okay.
Austin Matthews only has 2 years left on his deal before he's an unrestricted free agent. William Nylander, same thing. John Tavares, 3 years left on his deal. Mitch Marner, 3 years left on his deal. So, we all like to think about the Leafs as this young, hot shot team on the rise, but this could be over before we even know it. As dark as that sounds.
Yeah, it could be a rebuild podcast in a couple of years.
Like this could be over in a hurry. I know it sounds extremely negative and dark and sick and twisted to say that, but man, they don't have a lot of time. Let's just say that. The window is closing and they got to act on it quickly. So let's go through a list of players, Lepore.
Okay.
And this game is called, will this player be a Toronto Maple Leaf within the next 2 years?
Okay. Like at the 2-year mark, like Matthews free agency.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're setting the bar essentially at the Matthews free agency, which is 2 years from now.
That summer. Okay.
So let's start with Austin Matthews. Will he be a Leaf in 2 years?
I think he will. I think a lot of people, we're naturally negative in Toronto, fans and media, but I think Matthews, I think he likes being famous there. I said it. You won't be more famous than being a star of the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have a competitive team. Within reason, they're going to pay him what he deserves. Almost like, why wouldn't he? I think is the way to put it. And I think this is a bigger talking point with Matthews. I think we'll know right away. I think if you're him, and I always say I hate to get inside these guys' heads, but if you're him, you want that contract signed as fast as it can be signed, because you do not want to have to answer questions about that contract day in, day out. And if you are planning on staying, you don't want that around the team. You don't want that whole thing around the team. So I think it's going to happen. If it happens, I think it's going to happen quickly, where, wow, it's out the window. It's done. We don't have to worry about it. And as far as the number goes, and now we're kind of going off the rails, or I'm going off the rails. I think as far as the number for Matthews goes, it's going to be one thing or the other. It's going to be something very, very reasonable. I'm not saying he's going to take a huge pay cut to be a Maple Leaf, but it's going to be something that may be lower than we're expecting. Like, people are already saying it's going to be $15 million. He's going to be the highest paid player in the league. And we'll see what the cap's at and all that stuff and how the percentages work. But I think it's going to be either a very fair deal or he's gone. Because if he does want to stay, what other reason would he want to stay other than, okay, I want to win here? He can get more money somewhere else. One team will give him the max, probably. American player, most goals in the league. So I think we're going to know quickly with Matthews, and he's going to be captain eventually. If he signs, I think that's part of it too. Like, he'll be captain eventually. So to answer the question in one word, I will say yes. In 2 years, Austin Matthews will be a Toronto Maple Leaf. What do you think, Bruno?
I agree. I think he's going to stay with the Leafs. I've had conversations with people about this. Some are very negative, where they think he's out the door because the Leafs can't get out of the first round. Yeah. Some are very positive and say a lot of the same things that you just said, being like, why would he want to leave an organization? It's a first-class organization. And you hear it from former players, guys that played for the Leafs. Like, they talk about how first-class this organization is, and the difference between playing for the Leafs and playing for another team. And it's still obviously a really good team, and he is the heart and soul of this team. I think he's going to be back. I think he enjoys playing here. I think he enjoys the fame that comes along with it. Like you said, now he's really good friends with Justin Bieber. And, it's hard to be the face of a league if you play for, I don't know, name the team, Lepore.
Well, people keep saying that the whole thing with Bieber on the connection, or maybe because they're kind of an up and coming team, is LA. The new one's like, oh, he's going to go play for the Kings. And then, oh, he's friends with Bieber, LA, whatever. Austin Matthews is a nobody in Los Angeles.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
And
his brand goes down. And you mentioned the money. We talk about the money. His total earnings will go down if he leaves, regardless. Oh, he makes 2 or 3 million more, or whatever he makes more in contract. The endorsements, all that shit, branding, his cards, his jersey sales, everything goes down.
Lepore, people don't even care about like Mookie Betts in LA, and he's like one of the best players in baseball.
Yeah, because you see Brutus is worth $100 million walking by you every day, or $500 million.
Like in LA, with all the stars that are there, and especially in basketball, like it's mostly, I would say, a basketball town when it comes to sports, when it comes to like professional sports. And sure, like you could even say, I mean, even if you talk about like the football teams as well, like, I mean, talk about the Rams, like, does anyone really care about Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp?
Well, that was the whole thing. When they played the 49ers, the stadium was all 49ers fans. Like, think of that for an NFC championship game. It was all red because like the Rams, like whatever, like nobody really cares there.
So yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult for Austin Matthews to, number one, be the face of the league. And I get it. Wayne Gretzky played for the LA Kings, but if he goes to LA, I don't think you can compare the two. Yeah, being the star of the LA Kings and being the star of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, he's not Gretzky. Or even for that matter, when Beckham went, like Matthews isn't the brand that David Beckham is. So.
Exactly. So yeah, to answer it very quickly, I think he's going to be back. And you could say, oh, it's just wishful thinking from you guys. The Leafs suck. They're going to lose in the first round the next 2 years. Matthews is out the door. Whatever. Chirp us if you want. I just find it very hard to believe. And another thing you mentioned, Lepore, he's going to be the captain at some point. I just find it hard to believe he's going to leave this situation, especially if Mitch Marner is still here, because Marner has done a lot of great things for Matthews, and he's elevated him in a way to becoming the goal scorer that he is, even though he's already phenomenal goal scorer in his own right. But playing with Marner, it brings out even more magic. And let's turn our attention now to Marner, Lepore, who has 3 years left on his deal. Is he going to be here in 2 years?
I think it would be wrong for me to argue that Matthews will be here and Marner will not, because I'm sure they talk, their agents talk. To me, it's kind of like a package deal. So the fact that I think Matthews will stay, I think Marner would stay as well. But that's also to say, if Matthews was to leave, I don't necessarily think that Marner would leave. Right. And then who knows? And it's a weird thing with hockey and sports in general. When they were discussing the captain and the captaincy with the Toronto Maple Leafs, I mean, obviously Tavares' name was in the mix. Riley's name was in the mix. Matthews' name was front and center. And no one really mentioned Marner. And call me whatever, but it's that like unconscious bias thing of, and I'll say it, it's because he's kind of small. And he was a teenager, but he looked like a teenager. So it's like, oh no, you got to be a big burly guy to wear the C. So who knows? Maybe in 2 years we're sitting here and Matthews is gone and Marner's the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Toronto boy, and he's leading the way. But I think it's a package deal. I think they're both staying.
I think so too. Marner's a GTA boy. We know how much he bleeds blue and white. I find it very difficult to believe that either of those two guys is leaving because, again, I don't think it really comes down to the money. Like, really, you're going to go chase money with some, like, how much more can you possibly make? Yeah, they're going to be the two of the highest paid players in the league, regardless. That's the thing. It's like, for the people who think this is about money, I just find that ridiculous, especially in hockey, because, you know, in other sports, it's a little bit different where you have like, you know, these teams that can't afford certain players. Guys can, like, for example, like Tyreek Hill in football, right? Like the Chiefs, he's one of the best receivers in football, but the Chiefs are like, you know, we still have Patrick Mahomes. Like, we can't really afford this guy. And Tyreek Hill's like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about winning another Super Bowl. I'm going to go out and sign a massive contract.
Yeah, because the difference is like $50 million in football.
Same thing with Devontae Adams, right? Yeah. Signing his massive deal with the Las Vegas Raiders. I just think it's different even in baseball, we see it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to go out and try to make $300 to $400 million. Like Marcus Semien for the Jays, right? Finished he finished third in MVP voting last season and just goes out and says, I don't care where I play. I'm going to go sign with the Texas Rangers for $175 million. Whereas in hockey, I don't think it's the same because these guys just don't make as much money compared to these other sports. It's hard to go out and chase the money. I'm not saying guys don't chase the money and it's not possible. I just don't view it in the same light as I do Major League Baseball or the NFL or even the NBA for that matter. Like no matter where Matthews and Marner go, they're going to make the exact same money.
I think too, there's also the matter in hockey because the money's not there's two aspects here because the money as far as contracts go is not as big. And also because there's a huge gap in the market. It's like in football, Patrick Mahomes, it doesn't matter who he plays for. He would have an Oakley deal. He'd be everywhere. It doesn't matter. In hockey, markets matter. And the gap of whatever they would make, again, if it is about money playing somewhere else, they would lose that money. I mean, if you want to have some fun, go on Marner's Instagram, PlayStation, Red Bull, Range Rover, whatever cologne, whatever insurance company. He's making dough off that stuff. Dough. So because of playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's that bump up. So there's that aspect of it too, that you're turning your back on that money. The thing is too, we're talking about these contracts and all that. The Leafs pay their money up front. Like anyone who's taken grade 9 economics knows that that's really, really powerful. If someone offered me a $50 million deal and I got $35 million up front, or a $60 million deal where I got $10 million a year for 6 years, I take the one with the money up front. And like the Leafs can do that. And some people don't think they should be allowed to do that. And that's a whole other conversation, but they can. So, I mean, there too. Anyways, Matthews and Marner are saying they're retiring as Maple Leafs, names and numbers in the rafters.
Yeah,
move on.
They're going to be back 100%. Their jerseys will be in the rafters one day. We're speaking it into existence, Lepore.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that. All right, just to go through some of these a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
Let's lump these two together. Tavares and Nylander.
Together.
Are they going to be back? I mean, not that they're like a package deal, but will they be back? Will they be Leafs in 2 years?
So they both have 3 years left on their deals.
Nylander only has 2 years left.
Oh, right.
And Tavares has 3 years left.
Yeah, it's Nylander and Matthews that are together, and then Tavares and Marner that are together. I will say that Nylander, if I had to guess, if I had to put money on it, I would say he will not be. And I'm not on the camp of trade Nylander. I don't think we should even consider trading Willie Nylander. He's a great player, and I love that player. But he's the guy where I could see, based on the names and bodies we have, he's going to get offered a lot more somewhere else. Like there's a team that is going to make William Nylander, and this is not a shot at Willie, but they're going to make him more important to that team than he is on the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I would say
that.
Yeah, like I'm assuming this team's competitive in the next 2 years. I would say Willie he's one that walks in free agency.
Yeah, just based on his contract right now. Now, I do think it depends on how he performs over these next couple of years, because he hasn't had like that huge breakout season yet. Like I've always thought that Nylander has the potential to score like anywhere between 80 to 100 points. Like I truly believe that, like based on his skill level, based on what I've seen this guy do on the international stage.
Yeah.
Like this is a dude that I think could have like a 90-point season.
For sure.
Like I really do. And maybe he can do that where he's the main guy on a team, but I don't know. I don't think he's necessarily wired to be like the 1A guy on a championship team. Like, I don't think could you win a Stanley Cup with William Nylander as your best player?
No,
probably not.
Like he'd fit in well with Carolina.
You know what? He actually would be a good fit on Carolina.
Yeah.
He would immediately be like one of their top 2 offensive guys.
But just in the way that they're a team of like just 1Bs. You know what I mean? So it's
that's
fit right in, and a coach would love him. So,
but yeah, he's a type of player like, we talked about Marner and Matthews, like they're just elite players. They're going to get the same deal anywhere. Whereas with Nylander, he's only making 6.9. He could go somewhere for 8.5. Whereas maybe the Leafs just don't have the ability to pay him that. So I agree. He's a guy that maybe in 2 years, you know what, Lepore? I'm going to say he's back too.
What?
I'm going to say Nylander's here in 2 years.
Wow. Bruno's just riding it out. Okay.
Matthews, Marner, and Nylander are all going to be here in 2 years.
Well, then I think I know where you're going with the next one. We can't fit all these guys.
Yeah. You want me to start off with JT?
Well, you can start with JT. I'm going to go get a drink. I'll be back. I'll be back in an hour.
Okay. I'll say JT's not going to be here in 2 years. And I know he has 3 years left on his deal and he has a no movement clause, but this dude is just simply not worth $11 million. He is declining every year. I know he was a point a game player last year and he finished that series against the Lightning very strong. He scored what would have been a great goal in Game 7 before that phantom call on Justin Hall. I get it, but man, that contract is going to be an anchor, in my opinion, at least, over the next few seasons here, and it might be impossible to move, honestly. But I think if they're really going to shake up this team, you got to find a way. And I mean, it really, even like buying him out doesn't make a lot of sense because you're not really saving any money.
You don't need to buy him out. You can trade Tavares. Someone will. We see these guys getting picked up. You can take Tavares.
John Tavares, you would think.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be the guy. And again, he has a no movement clause, so it's going to be difficult to do. But I will say that Tavares is not here in 2 years.
It's tough for me to like picture them trading. I mean, they traded Wendell, but for Mats. It's tough for me to picture them like trading JT, like the biggest free agency signing the organization's ever had, the captain. I go back and forth because for that reason, I say, no, he'll be here. But then I think about it and I'm like, okay, we're starting to see that regression. Where will it be at the end of next year? Where will it be at the end of the year after that? So this year will tell a lot. If I had to bet in 2 years, I think the best chance is him just in free agency, or he re-signs for like the $1 million a year type thing to finish his career in Toronto. And then Matthews takes the C, but trading him, he's gone in 2 years. I can't see it. I'll disagree with you on that one. I mean, and I'm not saying that's what I want to happen, because I think if we could free up $11 million, and I'd take the freedom of $11 million extra on the cap and losing John Tavares, but I just don't see it happening in the next 2 years. I think if I could guess what's going to happen, he's going to ride out the 3 years, and especially that third year, as much as it'll suck to have to listen to the negativity, and then he'll do the Toronto hometown boy signing when he's done, and then the C comes off his jersey.
That's totally fair. I mean, if you were to look at betting lines for this, the favorite would be John Tavares being here for the length of his contract.
Yeah, probably.
And it would be plus money to say that he's going to be gone in 2 years. But who knows? You never know what's going to happen. I wouldn't put it past Dubas to just drop a bombshell on all of us. Like, who knows, man? I really do think Dubas has it in him to make like a big time trade. And who knows? I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens this offseason. But if you're going to bet, the favorite would be John Tavares being here in 2 years. Lepore, quickly with these D-men. Jake Muzzin and TJ Brody, both 2 years left on their contracts. Will they be here in 2 years?
So will they resign, or will they be gone before the end of their deals? I think Muzzin's gone, either trade or LTIR. I think Brody finishes his deal, at least. I mean, you have to have some veteran leadership and stability back there, and that's what he provides. And can we actually say Brody's game's regressed at all?
I think so. Brody's awesome.
Yeah, I'd say Brody. Yeah, I'd say Brody. I have a Brody jersey, random one. I like it. I like being the random guy. I'll say Brody, yes. Muzzin, no. I think that's kind of would be everyone's take.
Yeah, I'm right there with you as well. I have no for Jake Muzzin, yes for TJ Brody. With Muzzin, that's another situation where he's in decline as well. That's a guy that the Leafs could look to move this offseason, honestly.
Yeah.
I still like what he provides. Like when he's healthy, we even saw it in the playoffs against Tampa. Like I thought he played well.
Honestly, he played very well
against the Tampa Bay Lightning. But TJ Brody, to me, like he is just so good. He is probably the most underrated player on this Leafs team.
Love him,
in my opinion. So I think he's going to be back for sure. How about the goalies, Lepore? Muzzin and Campbell, my God. Mrazek and Campbell. Are they going to be here in 2 years? I mean, Campbell might be out the door in the next, who knows, couple of weeks here. But what do you think?
I think they're both gone. I think they're both gone. I think the Leafs are working on something with a goalie. Like names have come up for someone like young with a high ceiling upside. We talked about this last week, but there was some buzz that Campbell and the Leafs were progressing with talks, but I still think Dubas is too smart for it. Like, unless it's a deal he can't pass up on Campbell, I think Campbell's moving on. And as far as Mrazek goes, now this one you can call wishful thinking, but I think there's no way he's back. No chance at all. Let alone, I don't think he's back next year, let alone 2 years from now.
Yeah, with Mrazek, I think the Leafs are going to do everything in their power to get rid of that contract this offseason. And when it comes to Campbell, I will say that he is going to be back.
Oh,
I think they're going to find a way to re-sign him and bring him back. And, maybe you could say, Bruno, like, you're crazy because there's no way this team is going to win a Stanley Cup with Jack Campbell as its starting goalie. But honestly, I think you could do a lot worse than having Jack Campbell as your starting goalie. I will say he's back. And you know what? Maybe it ends up being in a platoon or a backup situation. I don't know. It's hard because honestly, Lepore, I'm finding it hard to believe that there's a team out there that is going to give Jack Campbell the bag. That's the way that I'm viewing this. Like, I don't see a team out there that's going to be like, here, Jack Campbell, we're giving you 5 years, $6 million a year at the age of 31 to be our starting goalie for the next 5 years. So I'm going to say Campbell's back.
Sure.
Lepore, before we end this podcast, front office, Shanahan, Dubas, and then obviously the head coach, Sheldon Keefe. Will they be back?
I'll be quick with this one. I think they're all still here. And I think sometimes as Leaf fans and even people who aren't Leafs fans, when they look at this organization, you sometimes don't realize what you have. And when I say that, I mean comparatively to what you've had in the past. How this organization is looked at since Shanahan got there, since Dubas became GM, nobody wanted to play in Toronto, period. Even the GTA guys did not want to play in Toronto until their careers were done, just so they could, ride into the sunset as Maple Leafs and then play in golf tournaments and sign autographs for the rest of their life. This is a place now where it seems people want to play. The branding of the Toronto Maple Leafs and growth has skyrocketed. There's a lot of positives. And even people say, oh, first round exits. If you look at the total revenues and profits, and if we could attach a total value to the Toronto Maple Leafs and how much it's increased since Shanahan took charge, it's a big number. It's a big, big number. And people may laugh at this. Think of the Justin Bieber jersey thing. Think of that. Think of the next gen game stuff, all
how
that
much
stuff.
revenue that's brought in.
Revenue and also culture, like how the organization like presents itself. That's big, big stuff, man. So just say, oh, they're gonna fire these guys. Like, no, they can't just get rid of them after they've seen this kind of growth. I mean, on the ice, it is what it is. They're putting together a competitive team, putting together a 115 point team and a team that has only seen growth in its value and its brand. It's tough to fire them. So I'll say, yeah, they're all still here.
I think they're all going to be here in 2 years as well. I agree with everything you said about Brendan Shanahan. And then when I think about Kyle Dubas and Sheldon Keefe, I think it's 100% clear now that as long as Kyle Dubas is the general manager of this team, he's probably not going to fire Sheldon Keefe because he easily could have done it this offseason. Barry Trotz still floating out there. Like you had names like Peter DeBoer. There were some names out there, some good coaches. And I know we had a conversation about recycling the same coaches, but there were some legit head coaches out there that could have been brought in, and he's sticking with his guy, Sheldon Keefe. So I think all three of those guys will be here in 2 years. And hopefully the Leafs don't keep losing in the first round of the playoffs and driving all of us absolutely insane.
So we don't have to have this discussion.
This team, man. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest before we wrap up this podcast?
No, just excited to see how this final unwraps. Speaking of the final, an alert came through. John Cooper announced that Nikita Kucherov will in fact be playing Game 4. So,
there we go. All right, Lepore,
exciting.
Lightning in 6. Here we go.
We're all excited now.
Lightning in 6, baby. I love you dropping that breaking news right before the end of the podcast.
Yeah, we got to start going live.
Look at that. Nicely done, Lepore. I love it. All right, everybody. That is going to do it for episode 65 of the Gluttons for Punishment podcast, or GFP. a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Once again, do all the good stuff. Give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple and Spotify if you like the podcast. And then on YouTube, if you're watching, it takes literally 3 seconds. Throw us a damn bone here. Like the podcast, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell. Help us out. Come on, guys.
Even if you don't like the podcast and you want to throw shit at us all the time, you can still subscribe and have fun with it.
Yeah,
come on.
Exactly.
Be a glutton for punishment just like we are.
Just come on, guys. Throw us a like, throw us a subscribe. You can still chirp us in the comments, make fun of us all you want. We don't care.
Yeah.
Anyway, enjoy the rest of the Stanley Cup Final, everybody. We will be here in about a week from now with our next podcast, so stay tuned for that. But until the next one, we will see you guys a little bit later.
Thanks, everyone.